My friends, I want to share with you tonight something that will completely transform your relationship with money. Not through effort, not through struggle, but through understanding a simple truth that consciousness is the only reality. What if I told you that your bank account right now has absolutely nothing to do with your ability to create massive wealth? What if I told you that someone living paycheck to paycheck could manifest $10,000 faster than a millionaire could manifest their next million? I know that sounds impossible to your rational mind, but before this evening is over, I'm going to completely shatter everything you think you know about wealth creation. Let me share with you a story that illustrates this perfectly. I observed two people, both 35 years old, both college graduates, both living in the same city with identical circumstances. The first person worked 60 hours a week at their corporate position, maintained 3 side ventures running on weekends, followed every financial advisor's recommendations religiously, budgeted every single penny, read investment books voraciously, attended wealth seminars, tracked expenses obsessively, and sacrificed their entire social life for financial goals. They did everything the experts commanded them to do. The second person worked part-time at something they absolutely loved, spent money freely on things that brought them joy and fulfillment, never worried about their finances, never checked their bank balance obsessively, had never read a finance book or attended a wealth seminar in their life, and didn't even maintain a budget. To most financial advisors, this second person would be considered financially irresponsible, even reckless. After 5 years, the second person had 10 times more money than the first. They didn't inherit it, didn't win any lottery, didn't get lucky with investments, didn't start with any advantages whatsoever. The only difference, and I mean the only difference, was what was happening in their consciousness around money. The first person was operating from what I call scarcity consciousness. The deep-seated belief that money is hard to get, that you must work extremely hard for every dollar, that there isn't enough to go around, that you must sacrifice and struggle to be worthy of wealth. The second person was operating from wealth consciousness, the absolute knowing that money flows easily and naturally to those who are aligned with it, that opportunities are everywhere waiting to be recognized, that abundance is their natural birthright, that wealth is simply a reflection of their inner state of being, and that difference in consciousness created completely different financial realities. This is what I call the great deception about money, and once you see it, you can never unsee it. Your entire relationship with money will transform forever. You see, most of you have been programmed since childhood with a fundamental lie. This lie has been reinforced by your parents who learned it from their parents, taught in schools, promoted by society, and especially perpetuated by the financial industry itself, because it keeps them in business. You've been told that money comes from external effort alone. Work harder, get more money. Work smarter, get more money. Get more education, more skills, more connections, more experience, save more, invest more, budget more, sacrifice more, hustle more. The entire financial world operates on this fundamental assumption that money is created through external action and external action alone. I'm not saying those things don't matter. External action is important. But here's what nobody tells you. Here's the secret the financial industry doesn't want you to know because it would put them out of business. All of that external action is completely powerless without the right consciousness behind it. You can have the best financial strategy in the world, but if your consciousness is tuned to scarcity, that strategy will fail. You can work 80 hours a week, but if your inner state is one of lack and limitation, you'll stay broke no matter how hard you work. Think about it this way. And this analogy will change how you see everything. You have two people planting identical seeds, same size, same genetic potential for growth. One person plants their seeds in rich, fertile soil that's been prepared with organic nutrients, perfect drainage, optimal conditions for growth. They've created an environment where those seeds cannot help but flourish. The other person takes the exact same seeds and plants them in concrete, hard, impenetrable concrete that won't allow any growth whatsoever. They water them with the same care, give them the same sunlight, tend to them with the same attention and dedication. Which seeds grow? Obviously the ones in fertile soil. The external action, planting the seed, watering it, giving it sunlight, caring for it, was identical. But the environment, the foundation, the soil itself determined whether those seeds would flourish or die before they even had a chance to sprout. Your consciousness is that soil. Your beliefs about money, your assumptions about wealth, your inner state around finances, your subconscious programming about what you deserve, your inherited beliefs from your family, your cultural conditioning about wealthy people. That's the environment where all your financial efforts either flourish or die. Most people have been trying to grow money in concrete their entire lives, wondering why nothing works, wondering why they can't get ahead no matter how hard they try, wondering why other people seem to have it so easy while they struggle for every dollar. They're focused entirely on the external actions, the seeds they're planting, the watering, the care, while completely ignoring the soil of their consciousness. But consciousness, that invisible inner environment, that's the true source of all wealth. So let me ask you something. Where does money actually come from? Most would immediately say work or business or investments or the stock market or real estate. But think deeper than that. Think about the fundamental source. Where do business ideas come from? Where do investment opportunities come from? Where do the insights that lead to financial breakthroughs come from? Where do the innovations that create billion-dollar companies come from? They come from consciousness, from awareness, from your ability to recognize patterns that others miss, to see possibilities that others overlook, to attract what already exists in the infinite field of potential. Every single dollar that has ever entered your life came to you through your consciousness first. You became aware of an opportunity others didn't see. You recognized a possibility others missed. You had an idea others didn't have. You met the right person at the right time. You were in the right place when the opportunity presented itself. And here's the key that changes everything. The money was always there, existing in the quantum field of infinite possibilities, waiting for someone with the right consciousness to recognize it and claim it. Every business that exists today, every fortune that's been made, every financial opportunity that's ever manifested, all of these existed as possibilities long before someone made them real. The television and radio existed as a possibility long before they were invented. Your next financial breakthrough exists as a possibility right now, waiting for your consciousness to tune into it. Your consciousness is like a radio that can tune into different frequencies of possibility. When your consciousness is tuned to scarcity, you literally cannot see the opportunities that are right in front of you. Your mind filters them out because they don't match your predominant frequency. When your consciousness is tuned to wealth, you become magnetic to financial opportunities. You start noticing things you never noticed before. You start attracting people and circumstances that create abundance. Let me share another story that makes this crystal clear. I knew a woman named Sarah who struggled financially for 7 years straight. She worked 2 jobs, one as a waitress and one cleaning offices at night, barely making ends meet, constantly living paycheck to paycheck with no savings. She tried everything the financial experts recommend. She used budgeting applications, tried multiple side ventures, took on extra shifts, even went back to school for additional certifications. She read every money book she could find, attended every free wealth seminar, followed every piece of conventional financial advice. Nothing worked. In fact, things seemed to get worse the harder she tried. She was stuck in what I call the effort trap, the belief that more effort equals more results. But she was applying all that effort from scarcity consciousness, so she kept getting scarcity results. It's like trying to drive with the parking brake engaged. No matter how hard you press the accelerator, you're not going anywhere. Then she learned what I'm teaching you tonight. She stopped focusing on her current financial situation and started operating from wealth consciousness. Instead of making decisions from I can't afford it, she started making decisions from how can I afford it. Instead of thinking I'm broke, she started assuming I have access to unlimited wealth. Instead of worrying about money constantly, she started feeling grateful for the abundance already flowing to her, even though she couldn't see it yet. Instead of seeing herself as someone who struggles with money, she started seeing herself as someone who naturally attracts wealth. Within 3 months, Her life completely transformed. Her employer at the restaurant offered her a management position she didn't even apply for, along with a 40% salary increase. A week later, a customer she had served once months earlier approached her about a business partnership that would essentially double her income while working fewer hours. 2 weeks after that, her neighbor, a successful entrepreneur traveling abroad for 6 months, asked if she wanted to stay in their beautiful home rent-free while they were gone. A month later, walking through a parking lot, she found a wallet with $300 cash and no identification. After following all legal procedures and waiting the required time, she was able to keep the money. 2 months after that, she had an idea for teaching people her wellness routines through an evening course. She had never created such a course before, had no technical skills, no marketing experience, no business background. But from her new consciousness of abundance, the idea felt natural and exciting rather than overwhelming and impossible. She launched that course and made $15,000 in her first month. Within a year, she had built a 6-figure business working from home, doing what she loved. Now here's what will probably give you chills when you fully understand it. Your current financial reality is actually showing you exactly what's happening in your consciousness right now. It's like a perfect readout of your inner state around money. What I'm about to share will change how you see money forever. I call it the money mirror principle, and it's one of the most profound truths about wealth creation. Your external financial reality is a perfect mirror reflection of your internal financial consciousness. Not what you consciously want, not what you hope for, not what you tell yourself you desire, but what you truly believe and assume to be true about money at the deepest levels of your subconscious mind. Your bank account, your income, your financial opportunities, your money problems, your relationship with wealth, all of it is reflecting back to you the exact consciousness you're broadcasting about money, most of which is happening below your conscious awareness. This is why you cannot lie to the universe. You cannot fake wealth consciousness. You cannot pretend your way to abundance. The mirror of reality always shows you the truth of what's really happening inside your consciousness. If you look in a physical mirror and see a frown, you don't try to change the mirror, correct? You don't get angry at the mirror or try to convince it to show you a smile. You don't put cosmetics on the mirror or try to manipulate the reflection. You change your facial expression, and the mirror changes automatically and instantly to match your new expression. The same with money. If you want to change your financial reflection, you must change your financial consciousness first. The external always follows the internal, never the other way around. This is why trying to create wealth through external action alone is like trying to change your reflection by manipulating the mirror. It doesn't work because you're working on the effect rather than the cause. When someone truly believes, not hopes, not wishes, not wants, but truly believes at a cellular subconscious level that money comes easily to them, their entire behavior shifts automatically without effort. They notice opportunities that were always there but invisible to them before. They make different choices without even thinking about it consciously. They take different actions that feel natural and effortless rather than forced and difficult. They attract different people into their lives. They have different conversations. They show up differently in the world. And those shifted behaviors create completely different results. When someone believes deep down that money is hard to get, that they must struggle for every dollar, that they don't deserve wealth, that wealthy people are somehow corrupt or different, that there isn't enough to go around, they unconsciously sabotage every opportunity that comes their way. They overlook possibilities right in front of them. They make fear-based decisions that keep them stuck in limitation. They attract people and circumstances that confirm their limiting beliefs. They engage in self-sabotaging behaviors without even realizing it. And they get fear-based limited results that match their inner state. But changing consciousness isn't about positive thinking or daily affirmations or vision boards, though those can be helpful tools when used correctly. It requires understanding something much more fundamental and powerful that most people never learn. This brings us to the law of assumption, the most powerful principle in money creation and honestly in all of reality creation. Most people have never heard of the law of assumption, even though it's operating in their lives every single day. They've heard of the law of attraction, but the law of assumption is far more powerful and far more practical. Here's the critical difference that changes everything. And pay close attention, because this could be the most important thing you ever learn about creating wealth. When you hope for money, when you wish for wealth, when you want financial abundance, you're actually affirming and reinforcing the fact that you don't currently have it. Hope implies lack. Wishing implies absence. Wanting means you're focused on what you don't have rather than what you do have. Every time you hope for money, you're unconsciously telling the universe, I don't have money, please give me some. And the universe responds by giving you more experiences of not having money. But when you assume wealth is yours, when you operate from the inner knowing that abundance is your natural state, when you make decisions as if you already have access to unlimited financial resources, you're claiming wealth is already true in your reality. You're not asking for it. You're not begging for it. You're not hoping for it. You're assuming it. You're embodying it. You're living from it. Let me give you a simple example that will make this crystal clear and show you how assumption works in everyday life. If I told you right now to hope that you're wearing clothes, that would be strange, wouldn't it? You don't hope you're wearing clothes. You assume it. You know it. It's not even a question. You don't have to check. You don't have to wonder. You don't have to convince yourself or use affirmations to believe it. You simply assume that you're clothed, and you operate from that assumption automatically and unconsciously. That assumption affects everything about how you show up in the world. You don't worry about being naked. You don't feel self-conscious about your nudity. You don't hope that people won't notice you're not wearing clothes. You simply operate from the assumption that you're appropriately dressed, and that assumption creates your entire experience of reality in that moment. That's exactly how you need to relate to money and wealth. Not as something you're desperately trying to get. Not as something outside of you that you need to chase or struggle for. Not as something you have to convince the universe to give you, but as something you already have natural unlimited access to. It's a shift from I want money to I am wealthy. From I hope I can afford it to I can afford anything I truly desire. From money is hard to get to money flows to me easily and constantly. In the quantum field of infinite possibilities. And quantum physics has proven this scientifically through experiments like the double-slit experiment. There exists every possible version of reality simultaneously. There's a version where you're struggling financially, and there's also a version where you're incredibly wealthy. There's a timeline where you're worried about money, and there's a timeline where money is never a concern for you. There's a reality where you work hard for every dollar, and there's a reality where money comes to you effortlessly. All of these realities exist simultaneously in what physicists call the quantum field. When you assume the wealthy version as your true reality, when you embody that timeline with your thoughts, feelings, decisions, and actions, you begin collapsing that possibility into your physical experience. You start attracting the people, circumstances, opportunities, and resources that exist in that wealthy timeline. The difference between wanting money and being wealthy is the difference between lack consciousness and abundance consciousness. Wanting keeps you perpetually in a state of not having. Being puts you in a state of already having. And the universe always gives you more of whatever state you're predominantly in. Think about it this way. If you want ice cream, that means you don't have ice cream. The wanting itself is an affirmation of lack. But if you're eating ice cream, you're not wanting it. You're having it, enjoying it, being satisfied by it. When you want money, you're in the frequency of not having money. When you assume you're wealthy, you're in the frequency of having wealth. And when you truly understand this, when this clicks at a deep level, you realize that there's an actual frequency to wealth itself. Let me introduce you to what I call the wealth frequency. And this concept alone could transform your entire financial reality forever. Everything in existence operates at different vibrational frequencies. This isn't mystical nonsense. This is basic physics that you can measure with scientific instruments. Love has a measurable frequency. Fear has a frequency. Gratitude has a frequency. Joy has a frequency. And wealth, abundance, financial prosperity. These have a very specific frequency that you can learn to tune into consciously. Scientists have actually measured the frequency of different emotions using specialized technology. They found that emotions like gratitude, love, and appreciation create coherent, harmonious frequency patterns, while emotions like fear, anger, and worry create chaotic, incoherent patterns. When you're in coherent frequency states, you literally become more magnetic to positive outcomes and opportunities. When you align your consciousness with the wealth frequency, when you match your inner vibration to the vibration of abundance, you become magnetic to money. You start attracting opportunities, ideas, people, insights, and circumstances that create financial abundance. It's not magic or wishful thinking. It's physics. Think of it like tuning a radio. And this analogy will change how you think about consciousness forever. When you tune to 101.5 FM, you receive that station's signal clearly. When you tune to 95.3 FM, you get that station instead. The radio waves for both stations are always there, filling the air around you simultaneously, but you only receive the one you're tuned to. You cannot receive multiple stations clearly at the same time. You must choose one frequency to focus on. When you tune your consciousness to the wealth frequency, you receive wealth. When you're tuned to the scarcity frequency, you receive scarcity. When you're tuned to the struggle frequency, you receive struggle. When you're tuned to the abundance frequency, you receive abundance. The opportunities for all of these experiences are always present, but you can only receive the ones that match your frequency. Most people are unconsciously broadcasting the scarcity frequency 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. They're constantly transmitting thoughts, feelings, and energy of lack, worry, limitation, not enough, fear about money, stress about bills, anxiety about the future, resentment toward wealthy people, beliefs that money is hard to get, and the universe, like a perfect mirror, reflects back exactly what they're broadcasting. They get more experiences of lack, more bills to worry about, more financial stress, more reasons to feel anxious about money. But once you learn how to consciously tune to the wealth frequency, your entire financial reality transforms. You start operating from assumption rather than hope, from abundance rather than lack, from gratitude rather than worry, from excitement rather than fear. You begin making decisions the way wealthy people make decisions. You start seeing opportunities the way wealthy people see opportunities. You attract the same types of people and circumstances that wealthy people attract. But here's the most important part. And this is where most people get confused or think this is about denial or delusion. None of this requires you to deny your current financial situation or pretend that your bank account has more money than it actually has. You're not lying to yourself or living in fantasy or ignoring reality. You're simply operating from a different level of consciousness, a different assumption about what's possible for you. You can acknowledge your current situation while simultaneously operating from wealth consciousness. You can say, I currently have $500 in my bank account and I have access to unlimited wealth. You can say, I'm currently experiencing a cash flow challenge and I know that abundance is my natural state. You can say, my income is currently this amount and I'm open to receiving much more. The key is holding both truths simultaneously, the current physical reality and the larger spiritual reality. You're not denying what is, but you're also not limiting yourself to what is. You're acknowledging what is while claiming what's possible. Most people make the mistake of thinking that acknowledging their current financial situation means they have to accept it as permanent. But that's not true. You can acknowledge where you are while simultaneously moving toward where you want to be. In fact, you must acknowledge where you are in order to move beyond it, because you cannot change what you won't acknowledge. The moment you truly grasp that consciousness creates your financial reality, not the other way around. Everything shifts in the most profound way. You realize you've been trying to solve an inner problem with outer solutions. You've been trying to change your bank account to feel wealthy when the real secret is to feel wealthy first. And let your bank account catch up. You've been trying to change your circumstances, to change your feelings, when the truth is you must change your feelings to change your circumstances. Most people are waiting for their external circumstances to change before they'll allow themselves to feel abundant. They think once I have more money, then I'll feel wealthy. Once I get that promotion, then I'll feel successful. Once I pay off my debts, then I'll feel free. Once I reach my financial goals, then I'll be happy. But that's backwards. That's like waiting for the mirror to smile before you smile. It will never happen because the mirror can only reflect what you're already expressing. You must feel wealthy now, in this moment, regardless of your current circumstances, in order to attract the experiences that will match that feeling. You must embody abundance before abundance can manifest in your life. You must become the person who has what you want before you can have what you want. This is why some people can start with nothing and create massive wealth quickly, while others can work for decades with all the correct strategies and stay stuck financially. It's not about luck, connections, education, intelligence, or even hard work, though all of those can be helpful. It's about consciousness. It's about the frequency you're broadcasting. It's about the assumptions you're operating from on a moment-to-moment basis. When you embody wealth consciousness, when you truly assume that abundance is your natural state, when you make decisions from overflow rather than scarcity, the universe has no choice but to reorganize itself to match your new level of consciousness. Opportunities appear seemingly out of nowhere. Ideas download into your mind like inspiration from another dimension. The right people show up at the right time with the right resources. Synchronicities become normal everyday experiences. What most people call luck becomes your standard operating procedure. Your consciousness is the soil where your financial future grows. Just like a farmer wouldn't plant seeds in concrete and expect them to flourish, you cannot plant money goals in scarcity consciousness and expect them to manifest. But when you prepare the soil of your consciousness, when you cultivate beliefs that support wealth, when you assume abundance as your natural state, every financial goal you plant will grow and flourish beyond what you thought possible. The financial industry doesn't want you to know this because it would put them out of business. They want you to believe that wealth creation is complicated, that you need their products and services, that you must follow their complex strategies and formulas, that you need to work with financial advisors and purchase their investment products and follow their complicated plans. But the truth is much simpler and much more powerful than anything they're selling you. Wealth is an inside job. It starts in consciousness and flows outward into physical reality. When your consciousness is aligned with abundance, the correct strategies, opportunities, and resources will naturally appear in your life. When your consciousness is aligned with scarcity, no strategy in the world will create lasting wealth for you. This doesn't mean that external action isn't important. Of course you need to take action. But when action comes from wealth consciousness rather than scarcity consciousness, it feels inspired rather than desperate, effortless rather than forced, exciting rather than overwhelming. You find yourself naturally attracted to the correct opportunities and naturally repelled by the wrong ones. You make better decisions because you're not operating from fear. You take more calculated risks because you're not afraid of losing what little you have. Here's what I want you to understand at the deepest level. You are not your circumstances. You are not your bank account. You are not your current financial situation. You are consciousness itself. And consciousness has the power to create any reality it assumes to be true. The money you want already exists. The wealth you desire is already yours in the quantum field of infinite possibilities. The only question is whether you're going to claim it or continue to reject it through limiting beliefs and scarcity consciousness. Every wealthy person started exactly where you are right now, as consciousness contemplating wealth. They didn't have the money first and then develop wealth consciousness. They developed wealth consciousness first and then the money followed. This is the sequence that creates lasting abundance. Consciousness first, then manifestation, not the other way around. Your current financial situation is not your financial identity. It's just where you happen to be right now based on the consciousness you've been operating from up until this point. But consciousness can change, which means your financial reality can change. And the beautiful thing is that when consciousness changes, reality changes quickly to match it. I've witnessed people transform their financial lives in weeks or months by simply shifting their consciousness around money. I've watched people attract unexpected income, new opportunities, and financial windfalls by learning to operate from wealth consciousness rather than scarcity consciousness. And I've also witnessed people work incredibly hard for years without success because they never addressed the consciousness foundation that creates wealth. The universe is abundant. There is more than enough money, more than enough opportunities, more than enough resources for everyone to live in prosperity. The only limitation is in consciousness. When you release the limitations in your consciousness, you release the limitations in your financial reality. But transformation requires commitment. It requires you to be more committed to your vision of abundance than you are to your current story of limitation. It requires you to choose faith over fear, possibility over circumstance, assumption over hope. It requires you to trust the process even when you cannot see immediate results. Remember, consciousness is the cause and financial reality is the effect. When you change the cause, the effect must change. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. And often the when is much sooner than you think possible. I want you to identify one limiting belief you've been carrying about money. Perhaps it's money doesn't grow on trees, or you must work hard for money, or there's not enough to go around, or wealthy people are greedy, or I don't deserve wealth, or money is the root of all evil. Acknowledge it, because awareness is the first step to transformation. You cannot change what you're not aware of. Then rewrite that belief into an empowering assumption. Instead of money doesn't grow on trees, think money flows to me easily and naturally from multiple sources. Instead of I must work hard for money, think I create wealth through inspired action and joy. Instead of there's not enough, think I live in an abundant universe with unlimited resources. Instead of I don't deserve wealth, think I deserve all the abundance life has to offer. Start operating from wealth consciousness today. Don't wait for your circumstances to change. Don't wait for more money to appear. Don't wait for the perfect opportunity. Start now in this moment with the decision to assume that abundance is your natural state. Your consciousness is the soil where your financial future grows. Make certain you're planting your money goals in fertile ground. Your wealth transformation doesn't start when your bank account changes. It starts when your consciousness changes. And that can happen right now, in this moment with this decision. The wealthy version of you already exists in the quantum field of infinite possibilities. That version is calling to you right now, inviting you to step into that reality. The question is, are you ready to answer that call? Are you ready to release the limitations that have kept you small? Are you ready to claim the abundance that is your birthright? Your new financial reality is waiting for you to claim it. The universe is ready to support your transformation. Wealth consciousness is ready to be activated in your life. The only question is, are you ready to step into wealth consciousness and become the abundant person you were always meant to be? This is your moment of choice. This is your invitation to transformation. This is your opportunity to step out of limitation and into limitless possibility. The choice is yours, and it starts with consciousness. Choose wealth. Choose abundance. Choose the unlimited financial potential that exists within you right now. Your journey to financial freedom begins here. Your transformation to wealth consciousness starts now. Thank you. As always, thank you for joining me on this journey into the depths of consciousness. Remember, you are not here by accident. You are here because your soul is ready for this truth. Take these teachings and let them transform not just your mind, but your entire reality. Until we meet again in consciousness, keep assuming your greatness and living from the end of your desires. This is Best of Lectures, and I'll see you in the next video.
My friends, tonight I want to share with you the most revolutionary truth you will ever hear. It's a truth so simple that most will dismiss it, yet so profound that it holds the key to transforming your entire world. Are you ready to discover the secret that the mystics knew, that the ancients whispered about, and that modern man has forgotten? The secret is this: your assumptions harden into fact. Now, before you shake your head in disbelief, let me ask you something. Look around your life right now. Everything you see, everything you experience, everything you call your reality, it all began as an assumption in someone's mind. The chair you're sitting in was once just an assumption in a carpenter's imagination. The building you're in was once merely an assumption in an architect's mind. But I'm going to tell you something even more startling. The life you're living right now is nothing more than the hardened assumptions you've held about yourself and your world. Every limitation you experience, every joy you feel, every relationship you have, all of it springs from your assumptions. Here's where it gets fascinating. Most people assume they are powerless. They assume they are victims of circumstance. They assume that the world happens to them, rather than understanding that the world happens from them. And because they hold these assumptions consistently, day after day, these assumptions crystallize into their experienced reality. But what if I told you that you could change any assumption right now, in this very moment, and thereby change your world? Let me share with you a story that will illustrate this power. A woman came to me once, desperate and broken. She had been married for 15 years to a man who she claimed was cruel and unloving. He never speaks kindly to me, she said. He's always critical. He makes me feel worthless. I asked her a simple question. What do you assume about your husband when you think of him? I assume he doesn't love me, she replied, without hesitation. And how long have you held this assumption? For years, she admitted. Then I said, you have been the author of your own misery. Your assumption that he doesn't love you has hardened into the very experience you're living. Now here's where the magic begins. I instructed her to change her assumption. Instead of assuming he didn't love her, she was to assume, despite all evidence to the contrary, that he adored her. She was to fall asleep each night in the assumption that she was cherished, valued, and deeply loved by her husband. But that's not true, she protested. He just criticized me this morning. My dear, I replied, truth is not what appears to your senses. Truth is what you assume to be true. And what you assume to be true will, in time, become your experienced reality. She began this practice reluctantly. Each night, she would assume the feeling of being loved. She would imagine her husband speaking tenderly to her. She would feel, in her imagination, the warmth of his affection. Within 3 weeks, her husband began to soften. Within 2 months, he was the loving man she had assumed him to be. He brought her flowers, spoke kindly, and treated her with the very love she had dared to assume. But wait, here's the profound truth. Behind this transformation, did her husband change, or did her assumption change her world? The answer is both, and neither. You see, we are all interconnected in ways that the rational mind cannot grasp. When you change your assumption about someone, you literally change the version of them that exists in your world. This is not positive thinking, my friends. This is not wishful hoping. This is the most practical mysticism you will ever encounter. Your assumptions are the building blocks of your reality. Let me give you another example that will stagger you. A young man once told me he couldn't find work. He had been unemployed for months. There are no good jobs, he insisted. The economy is terrible. No one is hiring people like me. Do you see his assumptions? He assumed scarcity. He assumed rejection. He assumed limitation. And these assumptions were faithfully reproducing themselves in his experience. I gave him this instruction. Tonight and every night, you will assume you have the perfect job. You will feel yourself in that office, doing work you love, receiving a salary that delights you. You will assume this so completely that it feels more real than your current circumstances. But I don't even know what job I want, he said. Your assumption will reveal that to you, I replied. Assume the feeling of fulfillment, of purpose, of being perfectly placed in your work life. Let the details follow the assumption. Here's what happened next. Within days of maintaining this assumption, he received a call from a company he had never heard of. They had gotten his resume from someone, he never found out who. The job was exactly what he had imagined in his assumption. The salary was precisely what he had dared to feel he deserved. Coincidence? Luck? No, my friends. This is the law in operation. Assumption hardens into fact as surely as water freezes into ice. Now, let me address the doubt that's arising in your mind. You're thinking, but Neville, what about all the times I've wanted something and it didn't happen? Let me ask you this. What were you really assuming? When you say you want something, but underneath you assume you can't have it, which assumption do you think will manifest? When you hope for something while assuming you're not worthy of it, which assumption carries the power? The assumption that governs your life is not the one you speak aloud or even think consciously. It's the one you feel most deeply, most consistently. It's the assumption that feels most real to you. Let me tell you about a woman who discovered this the hard way. She came to me saying, I affirm abundance every day. I say I am wealthy hundreds of times, but nothing changes. I'm still struggling financially. I asked her, what do you feel when you say these words? Well, she admitted, I feel like I'm lying. Deep down, I feel poor. I worry about money constantly. I assume I'll never have enough. Do you see? Her words were saying one thing, but her assumption, her deep, felt conviction, was saying another. And it was her assumption, not her words, that was creating her reality. I taught her to go beyond words, to actual assumption. Instead of saying, I am wealthy while feeling poor, she learned to assume the feeling of wealth. She imagined having more than enough. She felt the security, the freedom, the joy of abundance. And here's what's crucial to understand. She didn't try to convince her rational mind that she was wealthy. She knew that was impossible, given her current circumstances. Instead, she went to her imagination and made wealth feel real there. Every morning, she would spend time in her imagination, living from the assumption of abundance. She would imagine paying bills easily, buying beautiful things, helping others financially. She made these imaginal experiences so vivid that they felt more real than her bank account. Within 4 months, her financial situation had completely transformed. She received an unexpected inheritance. Her business suddenly flourished, and opportunities for income seemed to appear from nowhere. Now let me share with you the deepest secret of assumption. Your imagination is not just a faculty for daydreaming. Your imagination is the very workshop of creation. When you assume something in your imagination and make it feel real, you are literally creating that reality. Most people use their imagination to worry, to rehearse problems, to assume the worst. They imagine failure, rejection, illness, poverty, and then wonder why these things manifest in their lives. But you can use your imagination consciously, deliberately, to assume the reality you desire. You can make your desired state feel so real in imagination that it must express itself in your outer world. Here's a story that will demonstrate this power beyond question. A man came to me who had been diagnosed with a serious illness. The doctors had given him a grim prognosis. His family was preparing for the worst. Everyone around him was assuming his decline and eventual death. But I asked him, what do you assume about your body? I assume it's failing, he said. I assume I'm sick. I assume I'm getting worse. Then I told him, you are creating more sickness with every assumption of illness. What if you assumed perfect health instead? He protested that this would be denying reality. I explained that there is no reality except what we assume to be real. His illness was real because he and everyone around him assumed it was real. But health could become equally real if he assumed it with the same conviction. Here's what I taught him to do. Every night, he was to assume perfect health, not hope for it, not wish for it, but assume it as an accomplished fact. He was to feel the vitality in his body, imagine his doctor's amazement at his recovery, see himself living a long and healthy life. He was to make this assumption so real in his imagination that it felt more true than his current symptoms. He was to fall asleep in the assumption of perfect health, letting this conviction sink into his deeper mind. The transformation was remarkable. Within weeks, his symptoms began to improve. Within months, his doctors were calling it a miracle. But it wasn't a miracle in the supernatural sense. It was the natural result of changing his assumption about his body. His assumption of health had hardened into the fact of health. Now let me address something that confuses many people. Neville, they ask. If we create everything through assumption, why do bad things happen to good people? Why is there suffering in the world? My friends, this is perhaps the most important question you can ask, because the answer will set you free. Everything that happens to you is the result of your assumptions, either conscious or unconscious. Most people are not aware of their assumptions, so they create unconsciously, automatically, based on their fears, their conditioning, their inherited beliefs. When something unwanted happens, instead of asking, why me, ask what was I assuming that created this? Because within that question lies your power to change it. Let me share a personal example. Years ago, I went through a period of financial difficulty. I could have blamed the economy, my circumstances, other people. But I looked deeper and saw that I had been assuming lack. I had been imagining struggle, worrying about money, expecting hardship. My assumptions had created my experience of poverty. But once I saw this, I could change it. I began to assume abundance. I imagined wealth, felt prosperity, lived from the assumption of having more than enough. And my outer world changed to match my inner assumption. Here's what most people don't understand about problems. Problems are not obstacles to overcome. They are assumptions to be changed. Every problem in your life is showing you an assumption you've been holding unconsciously. Are you lonely? You're assuming isolation. Are you sick? You're assuming weakness. Are you struggling? You're assuming limitation. The problem is not the thing itself. The problem is the assumption that created it. Change the assumption, and the problem must dissolve. Let me tell you about a woman who applied this principle to heal a relationship. She had been estranged from her daughter for years. They had argued, said hurtful things, and neither would make the first move toward reconciliation. The woman came to me heartbroken, assuming her daughter hated her, and that their relationship was permanently damaged. I asked her to change her assumption. Instead of assuming estrangement, she was to assume love. Instead of assuming her daughter's anger, she was to assume her daughter's forgiveness and desire for reconciliation. But she won't even speak to me, the woman protested. Then speak to her in your imagination, I replied. Assume the conversation you want to have. Feel her love, hear her forgiveness, experience the reconciliation you desire. Every night, she practiced this assumption. She would imagine her daughter calling her. She would feel the warmth in her daughter's voice, the love in her words. She would imagine them meeting, embracing, crying tears of joy as they healed their relationship. She made this imaginal experience so real, so vivid, that it felt more true than their current estrangement. 3 weeks later, her daughter called. The conversation was exactly as she had imagined it. They met, they reconciled, and their relationship became stronger than it had ever been. Here's the principle at work. When you change your assumption about someone, you change the version of them that exists in your world. You call forth their highest potential, their loving nature, their desire for harmony. This is not manipulation, this is love in action. You are seeing them as God sees them, as they truly are beneath all the masks and defenses. Now let me teach you about the power of assuming for others. You can assume healing for someone who is sick, success for someone who is struggling, happiness for someone who is sad. Your assumption about them becomes their reality in your world, and often influences their reality everywhere. A mother once asked me to help her son, who was struggling with addiction. She had tried everything: meet interventions, treatment programs, threats, bribes. Nothing worked. I told her to stop assuming his addiction and start assuming his freedom. Every night she was to see him clean, healthy, happy, and free. She was to assume his recovery as an accomplished fact. But he just relapsed again, she said. Then assume that was his last relapse, I replied. Assume his freedom more powerfully than you assume his addiction. She began this practice with dedication. Every night she would see her son free from drugs. She would imagine him healthy, working, building a good life. She felt his freedom so completely that his addiction seemed like a distant memory. Within months, her son entered recovery voluntarily and stayed clean. Her assumption of his freedom had created space for that freedom to manifest. This brings us to a crucial understanding. Your assumptions affect not only your own life, but the lives of everyone around you. You are constantly assuming things about your family, your friends, your co-workers, and these assumptions influence how they show up in your world. Most people assume the worst about others. They assume people are selfish, dishonest, unkind, and they experience a world full of selfish, dishonest, unkind people. But what if you assume the best? What if you assume that people are loving, generous, and kind? What if you assume that everyone you meet wishes you well? Try this experiment for 1 week. Assume that everyone you encounter is on your side. Assume that people want to help you, that they see the best in you, that they wish for your success and happiness. Don't try to convince yourself this is true. Just assume it and see what happens. Notice how differently people respond to you when you approach them with this assumption. You'll be amazed at how loving and helpful people become when you assume they are loving and helpful. Now let me address the question of time. Many people ask, how long does it take for an assumption to manifest? The answer is, it takes as long as it takes for you to make that assumption feel completely real and natural to you. Some assumptions manifest quickly because they feel natural to you. If you assume you'll find a parking space, and you really believe it, you'll probably find one quickly because this assumption doesn't contradict your self-concept. But if you assume great wealth when you've always seen yourself as poor, it may take longer because this assumption conflicts with deeper assumptions about yourself. The key is persistence and consistency. You must return to your assumption again and again, making it feel more real each time. You must persist through doubt, through contradictory evidence, through the mockery of those who don't understand. Remember, your current reality took years of assumption to create. Your new reality may also take time to fully manifest. But every day you persist in your new assumption, you're building the foundation of your new world. Let me share with you the story of a man who demonstrated remarkable persistence. He assumed he would become a successful writer, even though he had been rejected by every publisher he approached. His friends told him to be realistic. His family suggested he get a real job. The evidence all pointed to his failure as a writer, but he persisted in his assumption. Every night, he imagined holding his published book. He felt the joy of seeing his name on the cover. He assumed the success that seemed impossible. For 3 years, he maintained this assumption despite continued rejections. Then, suddenly, everything changed. A small publisher accepted his work. His book became a bestseller. He became the successful writer he had assumed himself to be. The key was his unwavering assumption. He never let the rejections change his assumption about himself. He never let the evidence convince him to assume failure. He held to his assumption of success until it hardened into fact. This brings us to one of the most important aspects of assumption. Your assumption must be about yourself, not about changing external circumstances. You cannot assume that someone else will change unless you first assume something different about yourself in relation to them. The woman who healed her marriage didn't assume her husband would change. She assumed she was loved. The man who found employment didn't assume the job market would improve. He assumed he was employed. Always make your assumption about your own state of being, and let the external world arrange itself to match that state. Here's a powerful technique I want to share with you. Instead of assuming specific external changes, assume the feeling you would have if your desire were fulfilled. If you want wealth, assume the feeling of being wealthy. If you want love, assume the feeling of being loved. If you want success, assume the feeling of being successful. Feelings are the language of assumption. When you can generate the feeling of your wish fulfilled, you have made the assumption that creates that reality. Let me tell you about a woman who mastered this technique. She wanted to travel the world, but had no money and many responsibilities. Instead of assuming she would get money, or that her responsibilities would disappear, she assumed the feeling of being a world traveler. She would spend time each day imagining herself in exotic locations. She felt the adventure, the freedom, the joy of discovery. She made this feeling so real that she began to see herself as someone who travels the world. Within a year, everything aligned to make travel possible. She received an unexpected inheritance that freed her from debt. Her family situation changed in ways that gave her more freedom. Opportunities arose for her to travel for work. Her assumption of being a traveler had created the circumstances that made travel possible. Now, let me teach you about the most powerful assumption of all. Assume that you are God in human form. Assume that you are the creator of your experience, the author of your story, the artist of your life. This is not blasphemy. This is the deepest truth of existence. The creative power of the universe is not separate from you. You are that power, individualized as your personal experience. When you truly accept this assumption, everything changes. You stop being a victim and become a creator. You stop reacting to life and start creating it. Here's how this assumption transforms everything. When you assume you are the creator of your experience, you realize that everything in your life is there because you assumed it into existence. This means you have the power to assume it out of existence and assume something better in its place. You stop blaming others, circumstances, or fate for your problems. You recognize that your assumptions created your current reality, and new assumptions can create a new reality. Let me share with you a meditation that will help you embody this assumption. Tonight, as you prepare for sleep, imagine that you are the director of a great play called your life. You have been directing this play unconsciously, but now you're taking conscious control. Look at the current scenes in your play. Which characters do you want to change? Which situations need to be rewritten? What new scenes do you want to create? Now, as the director, begin to reimagine your play. See the characters behaving differently. Create new scenes that delight you. Feel yourself as the conscious creator of this beautiful drama. Fall asleep knowing that you are the author of your experience, and that tomorrow's scenes will reflect tonight's assumptions. Here's something that will revolutionize your understanding. Every person in your life is playing a role based on your assumption about them. Your difficult boss is playing the role you've assigned him through your assumption. Your loving friend is expressing the role you've assumed for her. This means you can change anyone's role in your life by changing your assumption about them. You are the casting director of your personal drama. Let me tell you about a man who applied this principle at work. He had a boss who was constantly critical and demanding. Every day was a struggle. He complained to his wife about this tyrant who made his life miserable. I asked him, "What role have you assigned your boss in the drama of your life?" "The villain," he replied, without hesitation. "Then that's the role he must play," I said. "What if you reassigned his role? What if you made him the supportive mentor instead of the cruel tyrant?" He began to assume a different role for his boss. Instead of assuming criticism, he assumed guidance. Instead of assuming demands, he assumed challenges that would help him grow. Instead of assuming a tyrant, he assumed a tough but caring mentor. Within weeks, his boss began to change. The criticism became constructive feedback. The demands became opportunities for advancement. The relationship transformed completely. Had his boss changed, or had his assumption changed the role his boss could play in his life? The answer is both. This brings us to the understanding of free will. People often ask, if I can assume things about others and change their behavior, what about their free will? Here's the truth. Everyone has infinite potential. In every person exists the capacity for love and hate, kindness and cruelty, success and failure. Your assumption about them calls forth one aspect of their infinite potential. When you assume someone is loving, you create space for their loving nature to emerge. When you assume someone is cruel, you call forth their capacity for cruelty. You're not controlling them. You're determining which version of their infinite self you experience. Let me share a story that illustrates this beautifully. A teacher had a classroom full of students labeled as difficult and slow learners. The previous teachers had struggled with these children, finding them disruptive and unable to learn. But this teacher made a different assumption. She assumed these children were brilliant, eager to learn, and capable of great things. She held this assumption despite their initial behavior. Something miraculous happened. The children began to live up to her assumption. They became engaged, curious, and successful. By the end of the year, they were performing at the top of their grade level. Had the children changed? Or had the teacher's assumption called forth their hidden potential? Both are true. Now, let me teach you about assuming in the face of apparent failure. Sometimes you will assume something, and it won't manifest as expected. This doesn't mean assumption doesn't work. It means you need to examine your deeper assumptions. Perhaps you assumed success, but had deeper assumptions about your unworthiness. Perhaps you assumed love, but held deeper assumptions about being unlovable. The assumption that manifests is always the one you hold most deeply, most consistently, most believably. Here's how to handle apparent failure. Don't abandon your desired assumption. Instead, examine what deeper assumptions might be contradicting it. Root out the limiting beliefs that are stronger than your desired assumption. A woman once told me she had been assuming wealth for months, but remained poor. Upon examination, we discovered she had a deep assumption that good people shouldn't have too much money, and wealth corrupts people. Her surface assumption of wealth was being contradicted by her deeper assumption that wealth was somehow wrong or dangerous. Once she changed her deeper assumptions about wealth, she began to assume that wealth was a tool for good, that abundant people could help others more effectively, that there was nothing spiritual about poverty. With her deeper assumptions aligned with her surface assumption, wealth began to flow into her life naturally and abundantly. This teaches us about the layers of assumption. You have assumptions about yourself, about others, about life, about what's possible, about what you deserve. All of these assumptions are working together to create your experience. To create lasting change, you must align all your assumptions around your desired reality. You must become convinced, at every level of your being, that what you desire is natural, possible, and already yours. Let me share with you a technique for changing deep assumptions. Before you sleep each night, examine the assumptions you've held that day. Notice when you assumed limitation, lack, or struggle. Don't judge these assumptions. Simply notice them. Then, consciously choose new assumptions. Replace the assumption of limitation with the assumption of infinite possibility. Replace the assumption of lack with the assumption of abundance. Replace the assumption of struggle with the assumption of ease. Feel these new assumptions in your body. Don't just think them, feel them. Let the assumption of abundance create a feeling of security and freedom in your chest. Let the assumption of love create warmth in your heart. Let the assumption of success create confidence in your posture. Your body responds to your assumptions. When you change your assumptions, your body changes too. And this physical change supports the manifestation of your new reality. Now let me address the question of desire. Many people ask, how do I know what to assume? How do I know what I really want? The answer is simple. Your desires are not random. They are the voice of your highest self, calling you toward your greatest expression. Every genuine desire is a preview of what you're meant to experience. Don't judge your desires as selfish or impossible. They are given to you as guidance toward your fullest life. Here's how to work with your desires. Instead of assuming you'll get what you want, assume you already have it. Instead of assuming it will happen someday, assume it has already happened. If you desire a loving relationship, assume you are already in that relationship. If you desire creative success, assume you are already successful. If you desire perfect health, assume you are already healthy. Live from the end, from the assumption that your desire is already fulfilled. Let me tell you about a woman who applied this principle to find love. She had been single for years and desperately wanted to find her soulmate. She had tried dating apps, blind dates, everything she could think of, but nothing worked. I taught her to stop looking for love and start assuming she had already found it. Every night, she would imagine coming home to her beloved. She would feel his presence, hear his voice, experience his love. She made this assumption so real that she began to feel loved even though she was single. She stopped the desperate searching and began living from the assumption that love had already found her. Within months, she met the man she would marry. But here's the beautiful part. She met him because she had stopped looking. Her assumption that love had already found her changed her energy, her behavior, her whole approach to life. She became magnetic to love because she assumed she was already loved. This teaches us about the paradox of assumption. When you truly assume you have something, you stop desperately seeking it. When you stop desperately seeking it, you become open to receiving it. Desperation repels what you want. Assumption attracts it. Now, let me share with you the ultimate secret of assumption. You are not just assuming things about your individual life. You are participating in the assumption of humanity itself. Your assumptions contribute to the collective consciousness that creates our shared reality. When you assume love instead of fear, peace instead of conflict, abundance instead of scarcity, you are not just changing your personal world. You are helping to change the world for everyone. Every assumption of love adds to the love in the world. Every assumption of peace contributes to global peace. Every assumption of abundance helps create a world where everyone can prosper. Your assumptions matter more than you know. You are not separate from the world. You are a co-creator of it. Your individual assumptions are threads in the tapestry of collective human experience. This is why it's so important to assume responsibly. To assume the highest and best for yourself and others. To use your creative power for the good of all. Let me end with a challenge that will transform your life. For the next 90 days, I want you to assume that you are exactly who you want to be, living exactly the life you want to live. Don't wait for evidence. Don't require proof. Simply assume it and persist in that assumption. Choose one major assumption about yourself. Perhaps that you are successful, loved, healthy, prosperous, creative, or fulfilled. Make this assumption your constant companion. Every morning, remind yourself of this assumption. Feel it in your body, see it in your mind, know it in your heart. Let this assumption color every interaction, every decision, every moment of your day, every night. Fall asleep in this assumption. Let it be the last thing on your mind as consciousness fades. Impress your deeper mind with this truth about yourself. Persist through doubt, through contradictory evidence, through the disbelief of others. Remember that your current reality is just the hardened assumption of your past. Your new assumption will create your future reality, but only if you persist. Some of you will see changes within days. Others may need weeks or months. The timing doesn't matter. What matters is your unwavering commitment to your assumption. And here's what I promise you. If you persist in your assumption, if you make it feel more real than your current circumstances, if you live from it completely, it must manifest. This is not hope or belief. This is law. Your assumption will harden into fact, as surely as the sun rises, as reliably as the seasons change, as inevitably as tomorrow follows today. You are the creator of your experience. Every assumption you hold is a command to the creative forces of existence. Assume wisely, assume lovingly, assume boldly. Your life is waiting to be transformed by the power of your assumption. The only question is, what will you dare to assume? Tonight, as you prepare for sleep, choose your assumption carefully, for in that assumption lies the seed of all your tomorrows. Assume it is so, and it shall be so. Good night, my friends. May your assumptions be blessed, and may they bless the world through you. The power is yours. It has always been yours. It will always be yours. Use it well. What if I told you that every wealthy person you admire, from Rockefeller to Gates to Bezos, discovered one secret that the masses will never know? What if the reason you're still struggling financially has nothing to do with your work ethic, your education, or even your circumstances? What if wealth was never meant to be earned, but remembered? Stay with me, because by the end of this revelation, you'll never look at money the same way again. My friends, I must tell you something that will disturb your peace, but it will set you free. You have been living under a spell, a collective hypnosis so complete, so pervasive, that you mistake it for reality itself. From the moment you drew your first breath, you were indoctrinated into the religion of lack. Your parents, meaning well, taught you that money doesn't grow on trees. Your teachers convinced you that only the smart ones or the lucky ones become wealthy. Society programmed you to believe that abundance belongs to everyone except you. But here's what they never told you. Wealth is not a reward for good behavior. It is your natural inheritance. The entire economic system is built on one fundamental lie, that there isn't enough to go around. This scarcity programming runs so deep that even when money flows into your life, you sabotage it. You spend it quickly, lose it mysteriously, or feel guilty for having it. And here's the most shocking part. The wealthy elite know this secret and deliberately keep it hidden. Why? Because a population that knows its true power cannot be controlled. You see, they need you to believe in limitation. They need you to accept that wealth is reserved for the chosen few. They need you to think that your circumstances determine your destiny. Because the moment you realize that consciousness creates reality, not the other way around, their entire house of cards collapses. I have walked among the wealthy, lived in their circles, observed their methods, and I can tell you without hesitation, they do not work harder than you. They do not sacrifice more than you. They do not deserve it more than you. The only difference is in their consciousness, their unwavering assumption of abundance. Now let me share with you the most profound truth about money that has ever been spoken. Money is not a thing. It is a state of consciousness. Everything in this universe is vibration. Your thoughts vibrate. Your emotions vibrate. And yes, money vibrates at a specific frequency. The wealthy don't work harder. They vibrate differently. Think of your consciousness like a radio dial. Right now, most of you are tuned to the frequency of struggle, 93.5 FM. Struggle. You're broadcasting lack, limitation, and I hope this works out. But wealth broadcasts on an entirely different station, 98.5 FM. Abundance. The multimillionaires I've known personally don't wake up wondering if they'll have enough. They don't check their bank balance with anxiety. They don't negotiate from desperation. They operate from a place of absolute knowing that money flows to them as naturally as water flows downhill. But here's what will shock you even more. This frequency of abundance is not something you develop. It's something you return to. You were born broadcasting abundance. It was your natural state before the world taught you to tune into scarcity. Watch a child at play. They assume they can have anything they desire. They don't question their worthiness. They don't calculate odds. They simply assume with complete faith that their wishes will be fulfilled. This is your original consciousness, before it was corrupted by well-meaning adults who had forgotten their own power. The good news is that you can tune into this frequency right now. You don't need to wait for permission, education, or the perfect opportunity. The dial is in your hands. The moment you stop trying to get wealth and start being wealthy in consciousness, everything shifts. Opportunities appear. People respond differently. Resources become available. Not because the external world changed, but because your inner world transformed first. Let me tell you about the conversation happening in your mind right now. As you listening this, one voice is saying, "This sounds too good to be true." Another is whispering, "But what about my bills? What about my responsibilities?" This, my friend, is the voice of your conditioning. It's not your voice. It's the collective voice of everyone who taught you to fear abundance. The wealthy have a completely different inner conversation. When they see an expensive item, they don't think, "I can't afford that." They think, "How can I afford that?" When they encounter an opportunity, they don't ask, "What if I fail?" They declare, "This is mine." Their mental diet consists of thoughts of expansion, not contraction. They feed their consciousness with images of overflow, not images of lack. But here's the secret within the secret. They don't think these thoughts to get rich. They think these thoughts because they already know they are rich. I once knew a man who built a fortune from nothing. When I asked him the secret, he said, "Neville, I never once doubted I was meant to be wealthy. Even when I had no money, I knew I was rich. It was just a matter of time before the world caught up to my inner knowing." This is the consciousness of the wealthy. They don't hope for abundance, they expect it. They don't work for wealth, they work from wealth. They don't try to become prosperous, they assume they already are. Now, I'm going to reveal to you the exact mental conversation that has created more millionaires than any business strategy. But first, You must understand why your current inner dialogue is sabotaging every opportunity. The poor man's inner conversation sounds like this. I hope this works. Maybe I'll get lucky. I'll try my best. I can't afford to fail. The wealthy man's inner conversation sounds like this. This will work. I am fortunate. I am successful. Failure is not an option because I am abundance itself. Do you see the difference? The poor man speaks from hope and fear. The wealthy man speaks from knowing and power. One is begging reality to change. The other is commanding it to conform to his consciousness. Your words are not mere sounds. They are creative forces. Every time you say, I can't afford it, you're creating more of not being able to afford. Every time you declare, I am wealthy, you're impressing your subconscious with the reality of wealth. Now I'm going to give you the master key that unlocks every financial door. The feeling is the secret. You see, most people have it backwards. They think, when I get the money, then I'll feel abundant. But the truth is, when you feel abundant, then you get the money. Your subconscious mind doesn't know the difference between a real experience and an imagined one. If you can genuinely feel what it's like to have financial freedom, not just think about it, but feel it, your subconscious will move heaven and earth to make it your reality. Close your eyes right now. Imagine checking your bank account and seeing more money than you've ever had. Don't just see the numbers, feel the relief, the freedom, the power. Feel how your shoulders relax. Feel how your breathing deepens. Feel the quiet confidence that comes with true security. That feeling you just experienced. That's not fantasy. That's memory. You're remembering your natural state before the world convinced you to forget it. But feeling wealthy once is not enough. You must make this feeling your habitual state. You must feel abundant when you wake up in the morning. You must feel prosperous when you're paying bills. You must feel wealthy even when your bank account tells a different story. This is not pretending. This is recognizing. You're not faking abundance. You're remembering it. Because the truth is, abundance is your natural state. Scarcity is the illusion. I have seen this principle work countless times. A woman I knew felt so wealthy in her imagination that she began walking differently, speaking differently, carrying herself differently. Within months, she received an inheritance she didn't even know existed. A man felt so prosperous that he started making decisions from abundance rather than fear. Soon, his business tripled in value. The feeling always comes first. The manifestation always follows. But here's what most people don't realize. You're already feeling your way into your future. If you feel poor, you're creating more poverty. If you feel stuck, you're creating more stagnation. I'm about to show you how to redirect this creative power. Now here's a technique that has created more millionaires than any business strategy ever could. Instead of affirming, I will be wealthy, you must affirm, I am wealthy. Instead of saying, I want financial freedom, you declare, I have financial freedom. Your subconscious mind accepts whatever you persistently claim about yourself as true. If you keep saying, I'm trying to get rich, it will keep you in a state of trying. But if you consistently claim, I am prosperous, it must externalize that claim. But, and this is crucial, you must feel the truth of what you're claiming. Empty words create empty results. When you say, I am wealthy, you must generate the feeling of wealth within your being. I'm about to share now with you the most powerful wealth affirmation ever created, one that has transformed paupers into princes. But first, you must understand why most affirmations fail. The reason most affirmations produce no results is that people recite them mechanically, without feeling, without faith, without the assumption of their truth. They hope the words will work magic, but words without feeling are dead. The correct technique is this. You must speak your affirmations from the consciousness of already being what you affirm. When you say, I am wealthy, you must feel yourself to be wealthy. You must speak from wealth, not toward wealth. Here's the most powerful wealth affirmation I have ever discovered. I am the operant power of God, and my consciousness of abundance is now externalizing itself as unlimited financial prosperity in my world. But don't just repeat these words. Feel them, know them, become them. Let them permeate every cell of your being until you no longer hope they're true. you know they're true. The reason your previous attempts at wealth consciousness have failed is simple. You were trying to convince yourself rather than assuming the feeling of the wish fulfilled. When you repeat, I am rich, while feeling poor, you create internal conflict. Your subconscious rejects the affirmation because it contradicts your emotional state. The wealthy don't affirm their wealth. They assume it. They don't try to feel abundant. They are abundant in their consciousness first, and the external world conforms. Here's the correct technique. Instead of mechanically repeating words, you must assume the feeling of wealth as your natural state. Walk as though you're wealthy. Speak as though you're wealthy. Make decisions as though you're wealthy. Not because you're pretending, but because you're remembering who you really are beneath the layers of conditioning. I must tell you about the great law that governs all manifestation. As within, so without. As above, so below. Your external world is nothing more than a reflection of your internal world. Change the inner, and the outer must follow. Most people try to change their circumstances first, hoping this will change how they feel. But this is working backward. You must change your consciousness first, and your circumstances will conform to match your new state of being. Now I'm going to reveal the one technique that has never failed to produce wealth when properly applied. But I must warn you, this requires complete abandonment of your current limited identity. This is the visualization technique that has created more fortunes than all the business books combined. Every night before sleep, construct a scene that implies you already possess the wealth you desire. Don't visualize getting the money, visualize having it. See yourself writing a large check to charity without a second thought. Feel yourself casually purchasing something expensive. Imagine friends congratulating you on your success. Make it real in your imagination. Hear the sounds. See the colors. Feel the textures. Loop this scene until it becomes so natural, so familiar, that it feels like a memory rather than a fantasy. But here's the crucial part most people miss. You must feel the naturalness of wealth. You must imagine wealth as your normal, everyday reality. Not as something exciting or surprising, but as your natural state. The wealthy don't get excited about money. They expect it. They don't marvel at abundance. They assume it. Your visualization must capture this feeling of naturalness, this assumption that wealth is simply who you are. I knew a man who visualized signing contracts for millions of dollars, but he made a crucial error. In his imagination, he was excited and grateful, as if receiving wealth was unusual for him. Years passed with no results. Then I taught him to imagine wealth as natural to him. Within 6 months, he signed his first $1 million contract. But here's the part that separates the dreamers from the achievers. You must persist in this assumption, even when your bank account tells a different story. And I'm about to tell you exactly how to do that. The key is to make your imagined wealth more real to you than your current circumstances. Your imagination must become so vivid, so natural, so familiar, that it feels more true than what your senses report. When you achieve this state, when your imagined wealth feels more real than your current poverty, the transformation is inevitable. Your subconscious mind will begin to externalize what it has accepted as true. The ultimate secret of wealth consciousness is this. You must live from your desire, not for your desire. Most people live for wealth. They work for it, hope for it, pray for it. But the truly wealthy live from wealth. They think from wealth, feel from wealth, act from wealth. This is what I mean by living in the end. You don't live in anticipation of becoming wealthy. You live from the assumption that you already are wealthy. When you truly live in the end, opportunities appear that were always there, but invisible to your previous state of consciousness. People begin treating you differently. Doors open, coincidences multiply. Why? Because you're no longer broadcasting the frequency of lack. You're transmitting abundance, and the world must respond accordingly. Living in the end means making decisions from your desired state, not your current circumstances. It means feeling grateful for wealth you haven't yet seen. It means carrying yourself with the dignity and confidence of someone who has already arrived. I once taught this principle to a struggling actor. Instead of auditioning from desperation, I told him to audition from the consciousness of already being a successful star. The very next audition, he booked a role that launched his career. Why? Because he was no longer trying to become successful, he was already successful in consciousness, and his external world conformed. Now I'm going to reveal the three-step wealth formula that has never failed when properly applied. But I must warn you, this requires complete faith in your own creative Make a definite decision about the exact amount of wealth you desire, and by when you will have it. Not I hope or I would like, but I will have. Your decision must be firm, definite, and final. No wavering, no second guessing, no changing your mind based on circumstances. When you truly decide, you cut off all other possibilities and commit completely to your desired outcome. Step 2. Assume. From this moment forward, assume the consciousness of already possessing this wealth. Think from it, feel from it, act from it. This is not pretending, this is recognizing what is already true in a higher dimension of reality. Your assumption must be so complete that you forget you ever lacked wealth. It must become more natural to you than breathing. Step 3. Persist. Regardless of appearances, regardless of current circumstances, persist in this assumption until it hardens into fact. Persistence means maintaining your assumption despite contradictory evidence. It means feeling wealthy when the bills pile up. It means assuming abundance when others tell you to be realistic. It means never abandoning your vision, no matter what the world shows you. This is not positive thinking, this is applied consciousness. You're not trying to attract wealth, you're claiming your inheritance. But here's what most people don't understand about persistence. It's not about forcing or struggling. True persistence is effortless because it's based on knowing, not hoping. Let me explain. True persistence feels natural because you're not trying to make something happen, you're allowing what is already true to unfold. When you truly know you are wealthy, maintaining that consciousness requires no effort, just as it requires no effort to know your own name. Once you've impressed your subconscious with the reality of your wealth, it will create what I call the bridge of incidents, a series of events that will lead you naturally to your desired end. You might receive an unexpected opportunity. Someone might introduce you to the right person. An idea might come to you in the shower. A chance encounter might change everything. These aren't coincidences. They're the natural unfolding of your impressed subconscious mind. Your subconscious mind is infinitely intelligent and infinitely creative. Once it accepts your assumption of wealth as true, it will find ways to externalize that assumption that your conscious mind could never have devised. I have seen the most remarkable bridges unfold. A woman assumed she was financially free, and within weeks she discovered a valuable painting in her attic that she inherited from a forgotten relative. A man felt himself to be prosperous, and his estranged brother contacted him about a business opportunity that made them both millionaires. The bridge might be simple or complex, obvious or mysterious, but it will always appear once your assumption is firm and your feeling is natural. But here's what most people don't realize. Your subconscious is already creating bridges, but they're bridges to more of what you currently believe about yourself. I'm about to show you how to redirect this creative power. If you believe you're unlucky, your subconscious creates incidents that prove you're unlucky. If you believe money is hard to come by, it creates incidents that make money scarce. If you believe you're not worthy of wealth, it creates incidents that confirm your unworthiness. But the moment you change your assumption, the bridge changes direction. Instead of leading you to more lack, it leads you to abundance. Instead of confirming your limitations, it proves your power. This is why consciousness is the only reality. Everything else is just the shadow cast by your inner world. The reason most people stay poor is not lack of opportunity, it's lack of identity. They identify as someone who struggles, someone who just gets by, someone who never quite makes it. Your identity is nothing more than your habitual way of thinking about yourself, and habits can be changed. Begin now to think of yourself as wealthy, not becoming wealthy, but as inherently, naturally, deservedly wealthy. This isn't arrogance. This is recognition of your true nature. When you truly embody wealth consciousness, you stop asking, how can I make money? And start asking, how can I best express my abundance? Your identity shapes everything: how you walk, how you talk, what opportunities you notice, what relationships you attract, what decisions you make. Change your identity, and you change your entire life. I knew a man who worked as a janitor, but identified himself as a businessman. He carried himself with dignity, spoke with confidence, and made decisions from prosperity consciousness. Within 2 years, he owned a cleaning company that employed dozens of people. His external circumstances followed his internal identity. And here's the secret that will accelerate your wealth beyond anything you've ever imagined. There's a specific identity that attracts money like a magnet. The identity that attracts wealth is this: I am the source of my supply, not your job, not your investments, not other people. You are the source. When you truly know this, opportunities flow to you from all directions, because you're not depending on any single channel. There is a consciousness that magnetizes money, a specific way of being that attracts financial opportunities like iron filings to a magnet. This consciousness has nothing to do with greed or materialism. It's based on understanding your true relationship to abundance. When you realize that you are consciousness itself, and that consciousness is the substance from which all things are made, you understand that you are the creator of your wealth, not the victim of circumstances. This consciousness carries itself differently. It speaks differently. It thinks differently. It doesn't chase money because it knows money chases it. People with magnetic money consciousness don't work harder. They work from a different level of being. They don't struggle for opportunities. Opportunities seek them out. They don't compete for resources. Resources flow to them naturally. I have observed this consciousness in the wealthiest individuals I've known. They possess an unshakable knowing that abundance is their natural state. They never doubt their worthiness. They never question their ability to create wealth. And now I'm going to give you the exact technique to develop this magnetic consciousness. But be warned, once you truly embody this, your entire life will reorganize itself around abundance. The technique is simple but profound. For the next 30 days, assume that everything you touch turns to gold. Not literally, but energetically. Assume that every conversation leads to an opportunity. Assume that every person you meet is a potential blessing. Assume that every situation contains the seeds of prosperity. This assumption will gradually become your natural state. And when it does, you will become a magnet for wealth in all its forms. Most people try to climb the ladder of success rung by rung. But there's another way. The quantum leap. This is when you bypass the normal progression and jump directly to your desired level of wealth through consciousness alone. Quantum leaps happen when your consciousness undergoes a complete transformation. You don't gradually become wealthy. You suddenly realize you always were wealthy, and your external world scrambles to catch up. I have witnessed these quantum leaps many times. A person spends years struggling, then suddenly their consciousness shifts, and within months their financial situation completely transforms, not through gradual improvement, but through sudden dramatic change. The key to the quantum leap is complete acceptance of your new identity. You must abandon your old self so completely that going back becomes impossible. You must burn the bridges to your former consciousness. This requires courage, because you must let go of everything familiar, your excuses, your limitations, your victim stories, your struggle identity. You must be willing to become someone entirely new. And here's something that will shock you. Most people unconsciously resist the very wealth they consciously desire. They sabotage their own success through hidden beliefs they don't even know they carry. Deep down, many people believe that wealth will corrupt them, isolate them, or make them bad people. They've been conditioned to believe that money is the root of evil, that rich people are greedy, that spiritual people shouldn't care about material things. These unconscious beliefs create massive resistance to abundance. Even when opportunities appear, they find ways to reject them or sabotage them. I once worked with a man who desperately wanted wealth, but unconsciously feared it would change him for the worse. Every time he started to succeed, he would make self-destructive decisions that brought him back to struggle. Only when he resolved his hidden resistance did his wealth begin to flow freely. The solution is to examine your deepest beliefs about money and wealthy people. What did your parents teach you about wealth? What does your religion say about money? What judgments do you carry about the wealthy? Until you resolve these hidden conflicts, your conscious desires will battle your unconscious resistance, and resistance always wins. But there's one belief about wealth that's more destructive than all others combined. And if you carry this belief, no amount of effort will ever make you truly wealthy. The most destructive belief is this: I don't deserve wealth. This belief is so devastating because it's often hidden beneath layers of justification and rationalization. People think they want wealth, but deep down, they believe they're not worthy of it. This unworthiness might stem from childhood experiences, religious conditioning, or social programming. But regardless of its source, it must be rooted out and replaced with the truth. You deserve abundance because you are life itself, expressing in human form. Every wealthy person I've known has certain rituals, not superstitions, but consciousness practices that maintain their abundance mindset. These rituals keep them aligned with wealth consciousness, even when external circumstances fluctuate. Some visualize their wealth every morning upon waking. Others practice gratitude for abundance they haven't yet seen. Many make decisions throughout the day from their desired state rather than their current circumstances. The key is consistency. These aren't occasional practices, but daily rituals that maintain their wealth consciousness as naturally as breathing. I recommend developing your own wealth rituals. Perhaps you start each day by feeling grateful for your abundance. Maybe you end each day by visualizing your financial goals as already achieved. Or you might practice making decisions from wealth consciousness throughout the day. The specific ritual matters less than the consistency and feeling behind it. These practices gradually transform your habitual way of being until wealth consciousness becomes your natural state. Now I'm going to reveal the most powerful wealth ritual I have ever discovered. It requires only 10 minutes each day. But those 10 minutes must be given with complete devotion and unwavering focus. Every evening before sleep, sit quietly and enter into the feeling of being wealthy. Not thinking about wealth, not visualizing wealth, but actually feeling yourself to be wealthy right now. Feel the security, the freedom, the power, the peace that comes with true abundance. Let this feeling fill every cell of your being. Make it so real that your current circumstances fade into insignificance. Then, from this feeling of wealth, give thanks. Thank God, the universe, your higher self, whatever resonates with you, for your abundance. Feel genuine gratitude for wealth that exists in your consciousness, even if not yet in your bank account. End by making this declaration: I am grateful for my wealth. I am worthy of my abundance. I am the source of my supply. It is done. Then release it completely. Don't think about it. Don't worry about how it will come. Don't check for results. Simply trust that consciousness creates reality, and what you have accepted in consciousness must externalize in your world. This ritual must be performed with the faith of a child and the persistence of a saint. Miss no days. Doubt not the outcome. Know that you are impressing your subconscious mind with the reality of wealth, and that this impression must externalize as surely as seeds must sprout. And here's what separates those who succeed with this ritual from those who fail. The secret ingredient that transforms this ritual from mere technique to miracle-working power is love. You must love the feeling of wealth. You must love abundance itself. You must love the version of yourself that is wealthy. Most people approach wealth manifestation with desperation, need, or fear. But these emotions repel abundance. Wealth is attracted only to love. Love of prosperity. Love of abundance. Love of the wealthy self you're becoming. When you truly love wealth consciousness, when you find joy in feeling abundant, when you delight in imagining your prosperous life, then the ritual becomes not work, but pleasure. And what you do with love and joy comes to you effortlessly. Love dissolves all resistance. Love eliminates all doubt. Love makes the impossible inevitable. Fall in love with your wealthy self. Fall in love with abundance. Fall in love with the feeling of prosperity. When you do, wealth will fall in love with you. My friends, I leave you with this ultimate truth. You are not poor waiting to become rich. You are rich pretending to be poor. Wealth is not something you achieve. It's something you remember. It's not a destination. It's your point of departure. The money you desire already exists. The opportunities already exist. The abundance already exists. What's missing is your recognition of these facts. Stop trying to get rich and start remembering that you are rich. Not in some future moment, but right now in your consciousness. And here's the final secret, the one that changes everything. The moment you stop needing wealth to feel complete, wealth flows to you effortlessly. The moment you stop chasing abundance, abundance chases you. The moment you realize you are already whole, your world reorganizes itself to reflect your wholeness. This is the great paradox of manifestation. You must already be what you desire to be in order to have what you desire to have. You are consciousness itself, temporarily focused through human form. You are the operant power of creation, the very force that speaks worlds into existence. You are not a beggar at the feast of life. You are the host. The question isn't whether this works. It's whether you'll have the courage to apply it. Because once you truly understand that consciousness is the only reality, you can never again blame your circumstances for your financial condition. The choice is yours. Continue living the lie of limitation, or awaken to the truth of your infinite abundance. Remember, assumption, though false, if persisted in, will harden into fact. Your wealthy life is waiting for you to claim it. The only question is, when will you stop postponing your own greatness? The time is now. The power is yours. The choice is always yours. I am wealthy. I am abundant. I am prosperous. It is done. What if I told you that right now, as you're listening to this, there are infinite versions of your life playing out simultaneously? Versions where you're living exactly what you dream of. Where every door opens effortlessly. Where abundance flows naturally. They're not fantasies. They're actual realities existing in parallel dimensions, just waiting for you to tune into their frequency. But here's what nobody tells you about why you're stuck in this particular version. Experiencing the same patterns, the same struggles, the same disappointing outcomes over and over again. You think you're trapped by circumstances, by bad luck, by timing. But the truth is far more empowering than that. You're broadcasting a signal. Every second of every day, your thoughts, emotions, and physical state are transmitting a specific frequency into what quantum physicists call the field of infinite potential. And that field, it's been responding perfectly to your signal all along. The problem is, you've been unconsciously broadcasting the frequency of your current reality instead of your desired one. Most people spend their entire lives trying to change their circumstances while completely ignoring the transmitter themselves. They're like someone trying to change the radio station by yelling at the speakers instead of turning the dial. And then they wonder why the same song keeps playing. But what if changing your reality was actually simpler than you've been told? What if it wasn't about working harder, pushing more, or even believing stronger? What if it was about something far more elegant, becoming the person who naturally lives in that reality? Let me share something that will completely shift how you see this. Every great breakthrough in human history, from Tesla's electrical innovations to Einstein's relativity, came from people who understood that reality isn't fixed. They knew that consciousness and physical reality are intimately connected, that observation literally changes what we observe. Tesla himself said, if you want to find the secrets of the universe, think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration. He wasn't speaking metaphorically. He was giving us the actual operating manual for reality. And here's something incredible. Tesla discovered these principles by tuning into frequencies that others couldn't perceive. He would literally visualize his inventions in complete detail, run them in his mind for weeks, make adjustments, and only then build the physical version. He was manipulating reality at the quantum level, before quantum physics even existed as a field of study. But Tesla wasn't unique in this ability. Throughout history, visionaries from Leonardo da Vinci to Steve Jobs all operated from this same understanding. They didn't just have good ideas. They learned to align their consciousness with realities that didn't yet exist in physical form. They became bridges between the quantum field of possibility and the material world. Here's where it gets fascinating. Modern neuroscience has discovered that 95% of your daily actions come from your subconscious mind, the part that's been programmed by every experience, trauma, and belief you've accumulated throughout your life. So while your conscious mind is declaring, "I want abundance," your subconscious might be broadcasting, "I'm not worthy of receiving it," based on something that happened when you were 7 years old. This is why affirmations feel empty for so many people. This is why vision boards collect dust. This is why you can read every manifestation book and still find yourself in the same exact patterns. You're trying to override a 95% signal with a 5% intention. But here's the fascinating part about how your subconscious actually works. It doesn't distinguish between what's real and what's vividly imagined. It doesn't understand time, past, present, and future are all processed the same way. This is why trauma from decades ago can still trigger the same stress response as if it's happening right now. But it's also why you can literally program new realities into your system. Think about this. Every night when you dream, your subconscious mind accepts the most bizarre scenarios as completely real. You're flying, talking to deceased relatives, living in impossible landscapes, and none of it seems strange while you're experiencing it. Your nervous system responds as if these dream experiences are actually happening. Your heart rate changes. You produce stress hormones. You experience genuine emotions. This reveals something profound about the nature of reality itself. Your nervous system doesn't know the difference between a vividly imagined experience and a real one. When you truly embody the feeling of already living your desired reality, not just thinking about it, but feeling it in your body, breathing it, moving from that place, your nervous system starts encoding those experiences as memories. Scientists studying the brain have found that when people repeatedly visualize specific experiences with full sensory detail, the same neural networks activate as when they actually live those experiences. Your brain literally begins to remember a future that hasn't happened yet. This creates what researchers call prospective memory. Your mind starts expecting these experiences to occur because they already feel familiar. Think about that for a moment. You can literally create memories of a future that hasn't happened yet. And once your subconscious mind recognizes these experiences as familiar, it stops resisting them and starts seeking them out. It begins to notice opportunities, synchronicities, and possibilities that align with these remembered futures. This is why certain numbers, symbols, and frequencies feel so powerful to people. Your consciousness naturally recognizes universal patterns because you're made of the same fundamental vibrations. When you encounter sacred geometry or specific number sequences like 369 or 777, you're not having a mystical experience. You're literally tuning your biofield to align with universal harmonics. Ancient civilizations understood this perfectly. The Egyptians built their pyramids using precise mathematical ratios that create specific frequencies. The Great Pyramid of Giza, for instance, incorporates the golden ratio and generates electromagnetic frequencies that researchers are only now beginning to understand. Indigenous cultures worldwide used drumming and chanting to shift consciousness and reality. They weren't engaging in superstition. They were working with quantum mechanics before we had words for it. Consider the Aboriginal concept of dream time. They understood that there's a dimension where all possibilities exist simultaneously, and that skilled individuals could navigate between different reality streams. Tibetan monks have been documenting techniques for consciousness-based reality shifting for over 1,000 years. Hindu scriptures describe multiple layers of reality that consciousness can access through specific practices. These weren't primitive belief systems. These were sophisticated technologies of consciousness that modern science is only now beginning to validate. Researchers studying advanced meditators have found that they can literally change their brainwave patterns at will, accessing states of consciousness that correlate with increased intuition, expanded awareness, and what can only be described as direct knowing. But here's where most people get tripped up. They think transformation requires massive dramatic changes. They're waiting for some cosmic permission slip or external validation before they start living differently. But quantum reality responds to coherence, not magnitude. A small action performed with pure aligned intention carries more vibrational power than a huge gesture performed from desperation. Let me give you a concrete example. If you're shifting toward prosperity, embodiment might mean breathing deeply when scarcity thoughts arise instead of spiraling into panic. It might mean expressing genuine gratitude for the money you do have, amplifying the signal of I am provided for. It might mean spending with presence and trust rather than fear and shame. But let's go deeper into what this actually looks like in practice. Say you're in line at the grocery store and you notice yourself calculating every purchase, feeling anxious about money. The old version of you would either suppress this feeling or get caught in a spiral of worry. The quantum-aligned version recognizes this as an opportunity to shift frequency. You take 3 conscious breaths, place your hand on your heart, and remember, I am supported. Resources flow to me easily. You make your purchases from a place of trust rather than fear. This might seem like a small thing, but here's what's happening at the quantum level. Every time you choose the new response over the old pattern, you're literally rewiring your nervous system. You're creating new neural pathways that support abundance consciousness. You're transmitting a different frequency to the field, and the field is always listening, always responding. The version of you who has what you desire isn't waiting in some distant future. They're vibrating right now on a frequency you can access today. The question is, are you willing to tune into it before you see the evidence? This is where it gets really interesting. Quantum physicists have discovered something called the observer effect. The fact that conscious observation literally affects physical reality at the subatomic level. But it goes even deeper than that. Recent studies suggest that consciousness itself might be a fundamental force in the universe, like gravity or electromagnetism. You're not just hoping for a different reality. You're actually participating in creating it through your consciousness every single moment. Your thoughts, emotions, beliefs, and expectations are quantum forces influencing the probability waves around you. This is why 2 people can have completely different experiences of the same situation. They're literally collapsing different quantum possibilities based on their internal state. Think about the placebo effect. People who receive sugar pills but believe they're getting powerful medicine often experience real, measurable healing. Their brain scans show actual changes. Their blood work improves. Their symptoms disappear. The belief literally becomes biology. In some studies, the placebo effect has been shown to be as powerful as actual medications for conditions ranging from depression to chronic pain. Now expand that concept beyond medicine. What if your beliefs about money, relationships, health, and success are creating measurable effects in those areas? What if every limiting belief you carry is literally programming your reality to reflect those limitations? And what if every empowering belief you truly embody is programming reality to reflect those possibilities? There's a study that perfectly illustrates this. Researchers took hotel housekeepers and divided them into 2 groups. They told one group that their daily work, cleaning rooms, making beds, vacuuming, was actually excellent exercise that met all the Surgeon General's recommendations for physical activity. The other group received no information. After just 4 weeks, the group that was told their work was exercise showed significant improvements in weight, body fat, blood pressure, and overall health. Same work, same routine, different belief about what they were doing. Their beliefs literally changed their biology. But here's the encouraging part. You don't need to fight your current signal. You just need to stop reinforcing it. Every time you catch yourself thinking, feeling, or acting from the old reality, and gently guide yourself back to the new frequency, you strengthen the transformation. The most successful reality shifters I've studied don't just think about their desired outcomes. They live in them mentally and emotionally multiple times per day, until those experiences feel more real than their current circumstances. They're literally rehearsing their new reality until it becomes the dominant program in their subconscious mind. I know someone who was struggling financially for years. She tried everything: budgeting, side hustles, manifestation techniques, but nothing seemed to work. Then she started spending 20 minutes every morning vividly imagining herself as someone who was naturally abundant. Not just visualizing money, but embodying the feeling of being someone for whom money flows easily. She imagined how she would walk, talk, make decisions, interact with others from this abundant state. She pictured herself confidently investing, generously tipping, buying gifts without calculating the cost. She felt the relaxation in her shoulders when money wasn't a constant worry. She experienced the freedom of making choices based on joy rather than financial limitations. After about 6 weeks of this practice, opportunities started appearing that she'd never noticed before. Within 6 months, her income had tripled, not through any dramatic external change, but through a shift in how she was showing up in the world. The key wasn't that she visualized money coming to her. The key was that she became the type of person that money naturally flows to. She aligned her frequency with abundance consciousness. There's a technique I want to share with you that can accelerate this entire process. It's called coherent breathing, and it's incredibly simple. When you breathe in a rhythm of 5 seconds in and 5 seconds out, you naturally shift your nervous system into a state of coherence. In this state, your heart, mind, and emotions synchronize, creating an incredibly powerful electromagnetic field. Your heart actually has its own neural network, literally a heart brain with over 40,000 neurons. The electromagnetic field generated by your heart is 5,000 times stronger than your brain's field and can be measured several feet away from your body. When your heart rhythms become coherent through practices like gratitude or compassion, this creates a cascade of positive changes throughout your entire system. But let's go deeper into the science of this. The HeartMath Institute has been studying heart coherence for over 30 years. They found that when your heart rhythm patterns become coherent, it triggers a favorable shift in your nervous system. Your parasympathetic nervous system activates, stress hormones decrease, and anti-aging hormones increase. Your immune function improves dramatically. Your brain synchronizes with your heart, leading to enhanced cognitive function, emotional stability, and intuitive insight. Even more fascinating, they've discovered that one person in a state of heart coherence can measurably affect the heart rhythms of people around them. When researchers monitor the heart rhythms of people in the same room, they find that one person's coherent state can influence everyone else's physiology. This suggests that coherence is literally contagious at an energetic level. This has profound implications for reality creation. When you're in a state of coherence, you're not just changing your internal state, you're affecting the quantum field around you. You're becoming a source of coherent energy that influences probability waves in your favor. But here's what I need you to understand. This isn't about perfection. You will wobble, you will slip back into old patterns. You'll catch yourself thinking negatively, feeling fearful, or acting from scarcity. This doesn't mean you're doing it wrong. This is part of the process. The power isn't in never falling. It's in how quickly you return. Every time you notice yourself slipping into the old frequency and choose coherence over chaos, you reinforce the new reality. It's like training a muscle. Each time you catch yourself and consciously choose the aligned response, you're strengthening your capacity to hold the new frequency. Most people approach this like a single event. They visualize, they affirm, they wait. And when results don't appear immediately, they collapse back into the old frequency, not understanding that the true magic is in staying. Sustainability is the master key of quantum breakthrough. This means developing the emotional and energetic capacity to return again and again to alignment. Not forcing yourself to feel positive all the time, but learning to catch yourself when you're off track and gently choose the new reality instead. Let me share what this looks like in daily life. You wake up and before your feet hit the floor, you ask yourself, what frequency am I bringing into today? You notice if you're carrying anxiety about your to-do list or trust that everything will flow. You set an intention to embody your desired reality throughout the day. As you go through your morning routine, you pay attention to how you're moving through space. Are you rushing and stressed, or moving with the grace of someone who trusts that there's always enough time? When you interact with others, are you coming from a place of need and scarcity, or from wholeness and abundance? Throughout the day, you practice what I call micro-alignment. These are small moments where you consciously choose the new reality over the old pattern. Maybe it's speaking up in a meeting instead of staying silent. Maybe it's choosing to trust instead of worry when your partner is late coming home. Maybe it's deciding to rest when you're tired instead of pushing through from old programming that equates busyness with worthiness. Each of these moments seems insignificant, but they're actually quantum choice points. Each time you choose alignment over old patterns, you're literally shifting your reality at the fundamental level. Here's something crucial about your environment. Quantum entanglement applies to consciousness too. When two particles become entangled, changing one instantly affects the other regardless of distance. Science has proven this phenomenon at the subatomic level, but the implications extend far beyond physics. You become entangled with the consciousness of people you spend time with, places you frequent, even content you consume. If you're constantly surrounded by people who complain, focus on problems, and operate from victim consciousness, their quantum field will continuously pull you back toward those patterns. It's not their fault, and it's not yours. It's just physics. This is why during periods of intensive transformation, many successful reality shifters temporarily limit their exposure to certain people, environments, and even news or social media. They're not being antisocial or spiritual snobs. They're managing their quantum environment to support their new reality rather than reinforce their old one. I had a client who was shifting from a pattern of toxic relationships to attracting healthy love. She realized that many of her friends bonded through complaining about men and sharing stories of romantic disappointment. While she loved these friends, she recognized that every coffee date was reinforcing her old programming about relationships being difficult and men being unreliable. She didn't cut off these friendships, but she did start limiting the time she spent in conversations focused on relationship problems. Instead, she sought out friends who were in healthy relationships, joined activities where she could meet people operating from a different paradigm, and consumed content that reinforced her new beliefs about love being natural and available. Within 3 months, she met her current partner, someone completely different from her previous pattern. But the shift wasn't magical. It was strategic. She managed her quantum environment to support her transformation. There's another layer to this that most people miss: the influence of collective consciousness. Researchers studying global coherence have found that major world events correlate with changes in the Earth's electromagnetic field. During times of collective trauma, stress, or celebration, sensitive instruments can measure actual changes in the planet's energetic state. This means you're not just influenced by the people immediately around you, you're also affected by the consciousness of your community, your country, and humanity as a whole. This is why it's so important to consciously choose what you feed your mind. Every piece of news you consume, every conversation you engage in, every piece of content you watch is either raising your frequency or lowering it. But here's the empowering part. When you commit to holding a coherent frequency, you're not just transforming your own reality, you're contributing to the upliftment of collective consciousness. Every time you choose love over fear, trust over worry, or generosity over scarcity, you're adding coherence to the global field. There's one more level I want to share about gratitude that most people miss. There are actually 3 levels, and only the third creates quantum transformation. The first is gratitude for what you already have: your health, your family, your home. This is beautiful and important, but it mostly maintains your current reality. It keeps you in appreciation of the present, without necessarily creating momentum for change. The second is gratitude for positive changes that are happening: new opportunities, improving relationships, increasing abundance. This accelerates positive momentum and helps you recognize and appreciate progress as it unfolds. But the third level is where quantum magic happens. This is gratitude for experiences that haven't manifested yet, but that you're so aligned with that you can feel them as already complete. This isn't positive thinking or wishful hoping. This is a deep cellular knowing that these experiences are already real in the quantum field and are simply moving into physical form. When you can feel genuine gratitude for the love that's coming, the abundance that's flowing, the opportunities that are appearing, not as future possibilities, but as existing realities, you create what physicists call retrocausality. You're literally allowing your future to influence your present. This is advanced consciousness work, and it takes practice. But when you master this level of gratitude, reality becomes incredibly responsive to your intention. You're no longer trying to create something from nothing. You're aligning with something that already exists and feeling grateful for its inevitable appearance in your physical experience. I remember working with someone who was starting a business. Instead of feeling grateful only when sales came in, she practiced feeling grateful for the clients who were already seeking her services but hadn't found her yet. She would wake up each morning and feel genuine appreciation for all the people whose lives would be transformed by her work, even though most of them didn't know she existed yet. This wasn't delusional thinking. It was quantum alignment. Within 6 months, her business had exceeded her first-year goals. But more importantly, she enjoyed the journey because she was living in gratitude rather than constantly focused on what was lacking. Let me share something about the role of resistance that might surprise you. Most people think resistance is the enemy of transformation. They try to push through it, overcome it, or eliminate it entirely. But resistance is actually information. It's your system's way of showing you exactly where your old programming is stored. When you feel resistance to taking an aligned action, your nervous system is essentially saying, this feels unfamiliar and potentially dangerous. Let's stick with what we know. But what it doesn't realize is that what feels safe is actually keeping you trapped in outcomes you don't want. So instead of fighting resistance, you can use it as a compass. The things you feel most resistant to are often exactly the actions that will create the biggest shifts in your reality. Not because struggle is necessary, but because these actions represent the biggest departures from your old programming. There's something else I want to address about timing that causes a lot of people to give up just before their breakthrough. Quantum reality doesn't operate on linear time, the way our minds expect it to. Sometimes changes happen instantly. You shift frequency and immediately notice synchronicities, opportunities, or shifts in how people respond to you. But sometimes there's what I call a gestation period, where you're holding the new frequency, but the physical reality is still catching up. This is similar to planting a seed. Just because you don't see the plant immediately doesn't mean nothing is happening. Below the surface, roots are growing, the soil is shifting, energy is building. During these gestation periods, it's crucial to maintain your frequency without getting discouraged by the lack of visible progress. This is where most people falter. They start strong, hold the new frequency for a few weeks or months, but then get discouraged when they don't see dramatic external changes and slip back into old patterns. But here's what's actually happening during these periods. Your external reality is reorganizing to match your new frequency. Opportunities are aligning. People are being moved into position. Circumstances are shifting in ways you can't yet see. The field is responding to your signal, but it takes time for complex changes to manifest in physical form. Think of it like ordering something online. The moment you place the order and pay, that item belongs to you. It's already yours, even though it hasn't arrived yet. You don't keep reordering because you don't see it immediately. You track the package and trust the process. The same principle applies to reality creation. The moment you truly align with a new frequency and hold it consistently, that reality belongs to you. It's already yours in the quantum field. Now it's just a matter of maintaining the frequency while it makes its way into physical form. I want to share one more crucial element about why some people experience rapid manifestations while others seem to struggle. It comes down to what I call energetic attachment to outcomes. When you're desperately attached to a specific result happening in a specific time frame, You're actually broadcasting the frequency of lack and need rather than abundance and trust. The quantum field responds to your energetic state, not your mental desires. So when you're pushing, forcing, or anxiously waiting for something to manifest, you're transmitting the signal that you don't have it yet, that you're incomplete without it. And the field keeps reflecting that incomplete state back to you. The people who experience the most effortless manifestations are those who can hold a clear intention while remaining unattached to how or when it unfolds. They're like master gardeners who plant seeds with care and attention, then trust the natural process without digging them up every day to check on progress. This doesn't mean being passive or uncommitted to your desires. It means being fully aligned with what you want, while trusting that the universe knows the perfect timing and method for delivery. It means being excited about your vision, while being equally content with your present reality. When you can hold this balance, clear intention with relaxed detachment, you become irresistible to the quantum field. You're signaling that you're ready to receive while also showing that you're complete, whether or not you receive it. This paradoxical state is where miracles happen. So here's my invitation to you. In the next 24 hours, surprise yourself. Do one thing that belongs to the version of you living in your desired reality. Maybe it's a choice, a gesture, a conversation, or even a private shift in your mind. It doesn't need to be big. It just needs to be real. Maybe it's speaking up for yourself in a situation where you'd normally stay quiet. Maybe it's wearing something that makes you feel confident and powerful. Maybe it's having a conversation you've been avoiding, or setting a boundary you've been afraid to set. Maybe it's simply sitting quietly for 10 minutes and visualizing yourself living your dream life with such vivid detail that your body responds as if it's happening right now. Whatever you choose, do it with full presence and intention. Know that this single aligned action is sending ripples through the quantum field, setting in motion a chain of events that will bring your desired reality into form. Because here's the truth that I want to leave you with. You're not waiting for change. You are the change. You're not chasing the reality. You are becoming the reality. And when you truly embody that understanding, when you live it in your bones, rather than just understanding it with your mind, the quantum field has no choice but to respond. The version of you that you've been dreaming of isn't coming someday. They're here now, waiting for you to step into their frequency. They're not hiding in some distant future or locked behind impossible conditions. They exist right now in the quantum field of infinite possibility, ready to collapse into form the moment you align with their frequency. And alignment isn't something you have to achieve through years of practice or perfect conditions. It's something you can choose right now, in this moment, with your next breath, your next thought, your next action. The only question remaining is, are you ready to tune in?